The wind came in hard that night, ripping through the valley like it had a grudge, and Cole Harlan was already out of bed before he heard the second crash from the barn. He grabbed his rifle, boots on, no lamp. A man who lights a lamp before he checks a noise is a man who gets shot by whoever is making it. The barn door hung open 3 inches. The latch was busted clean off. He pressed his back to the outer wall, listened. One of the horses was stamping. Not panicked, just unsettled. Whatever was in there wasn't moving anymore. He pushed the door open with the barrel and stepped in. She was on the floor between the hay bales and the water trough, face down, her left hand curled under her chin like a sleeping child. Apache? He could tell that much in the dark. The beadwork on her moccasins, the cut of her dress, the single braid down her back, matted with dried blood on the left side, where something had caught her hard enough to drop her. Cole stood over her for 4 full seconds. He was not a man who left injured people on barn floors. That was the whole story, right there. That was every decision that followed. He checked her pulse with 2 fingers. Strong, uneven. She'd lost blood, but not too much. The wound was on the side of her head, just above the ear. Something blunt, not a bullet. He'd seen enough bullet wounds to know the difference in the dark. He picked her up. She was lighter than he expected and heavier than he wanted, and she did not stir once. He carried her across the yard and through the back door of the house, into the room he used for sick calves in winter because it had the softest floor, a small iron stove, and a cot that was better than the ground. He set her on the cot, found a cloth, found the water basin, cleaned the wound as best he could without waking her, though she flinched twice and her jaw tightened like she was fighting sleep itself, fighting the not knowing. Cole sat back in the chair by the stove. Outside, the wind hammered the shutters. He should have gone back to bed. He had 43 head of cattle, 2 ranch hands who wouldn't show up until dawn, a fence line down on the north pasture, and a buyer coming in from Tucson in 2 days who was not the patient kind. He did not go back to bed. He watched the woman breathe. Her name he would not learn until morning. What had happened to her? He would not learn for 3 days. And what it would cost him, he would not know until it was already paid. Cole Harlan was 34 years old. He had built this ranch from 40 acres and 1 stubborn mule. He had survived a drought, a cattle fever, a bad business partner named Dale who had since relocated to a place with no forwarding address, and 1 brief and poorly considered marriage that had ended when his wife decided the territory was no place for a woman with refined preferences. He was not a complicated man, but he was sitting in a chair at 2 in the morning watching a stranger breathe. And something in the room had shifted the way rooms shift when something important has just walked into your life wearing the wrong shoes. The stove clicked. The woman's chest rose, fell, rose. Cole pulled his hat down over his eyes and tried to sleep in the chair, because going back to his own bed felt wrong in a way he could not have named. He was asleep in 4 minutes. She was awake in 6, watching him from the cot, with dark eyes that had already mapped every exit in the room. She did not move. She did not make a sound. She studied the man in the chair, the rifle leaning against the wall too far from his hand, the water basin on the table with the bloody cloth folded beside it, the stove, the single window, the unlocked door. She had been in the barn. She knew that. Before the barn, she had been running. Before the running, there was something she was not going to think about yet, because if she thought about it, she would stop being calm, and she needed to stay calm. The man in the chair breathed slow. His hat was crooked. His boots were old but well kept, which told her something. His hands rested on his knees, loose, not a man sleeping with a weapon ready, not a man who had put her here expecting a fight. She touched the side of her head, felt the cloth tied there, clean, tight enough to be useful, not so tight as to punish. She looked at the door. She looked at the man. She stayed on the cot. Outside, the wind was starting to die. Somewhere in the valley, a coyote called once and went quiet. Dawn was close. She could feel it in the cold. When the first gray light came through the window, Cole Harlan opened his eyes and found the woman sitting upright on the cot, watching him with the kind of stillness that most people never learn and some people are born with. He did not reach for the rifle. She noted that. He said, "Morning." She said nothing. He said, "Water?" And she said, in English that was cleaner than his, "Yes." That was how it began. Not with a gun. Not with a word that meant anything large. With a tin cup of water passed between two people in a cold room at dawn, neither one of them knowing yet what the other had cost them. 2 miles west of Cole's ranch, a man named Burl Cutter was already awake, already angry, and already sending riders out in 3 directions. They were looking for something he had lost, and they would reach Cole Harlan's fence line by noon. The woman's name was Naya. She said it like it was a complete sentence, which Cole supposed it was. He handed her the cup of water. She drank it all without stopping, handed it back, and said her name, as if that settled something. Cole refilled the cup, put it on the table beside the cot, stepped back and gave her room because she was watching him the way a person watches something they are still deciding about. "How bad is the head?" he asked. "Bad enough," she said. "Not bad enough." He understood that. Not bad enough to slow her down. She was already calculating. He could see it, her eyes moving to the window again, with that same flat measurement they had done when he first woke up. Checking distance. Checking time of day. Checking which direction the light was coming from. "You're not in danger here," Cole said. She looked at him. One long look that said she had heard that sentence before from people who then proved it wrong. He didn't push it. He went to the kitchen and put a pan on. Eggs, salt pork, biscuits left over from 2 days ago that he wrapped in a cloth and set near the stove to soften. When he brought the plate back, she was standing. She had her moccasins on. She was not falling over, which meant the wound was survivable, which was the best he had hoped for. She sat and ate. All of it. The biscuits, too. Cole drank his coffee and did not ask her anything yet, because a person who has just eaten for the first time in what looked like a day and a half deserves a moment of quiet. When she set the plate down, she said, "The men who are looking for me will come here." Cole set his cup down. "How many?" he said. 4. Maybe 5 now. She touched the cloth on her head. "Burl Cutter, you know the name?" He knew it the way everyone in the territory knew it. The way you know the name of a storm that hit 3 counties over and might still be turning your direction. Burl Cutter ran cattle on paper and ran people in practice. He had a ranch twice the size of Cole's, a lawyer in Tucson who had kept him out of 3 trials, and a deputy sheriff in his pocket who everyone knew about, and no one said aloud. Cole picked up his cup again, took a slow drink. "What did he lose?" Cole said. And his voice was careful and quiet, because he already understood this was not going to be a simple answer. Naya looked at him. There was something moving behind her eyes that was not fear and was not anger, but was a kind of exhausted truth that people carry when they have been telling a story for a long time and are tired of starting from the beginning. "He took my brother," she said. 2 months ago. Took him from the reservation with 2 of his men and a piece of paper that wasn't legal and everyone knew wasn't legal, but no one with a badge would look at. She stopped. Then, I found where he was being held. I got him out. And then his men found me before I could get back across the ridge. Cole put the cup down for the last time. Outside, his ranch hand Danny was crossing the yard toward the barn. And beyond the fence line, the valley was wide open and gold with morning. And somewhere behind the eastern ridge, 4 or 5 men were riding with burl cutters' orders in their mouths. Cole was a man who liked things simple. Decisions with clean edges. He had spent 10 years building something on this land that was his, paid for with work and weather and time, and it had given him the thing he wanted most, which was a life that required nothing complicated of him. That was over now. He knew it before he made any decision. The way you know a nail is going through your boot before you fully step down. "Where's your brother now?" he said. "East, with my uncle's family. Safe." She looked out the window. "If I can get back to him." Cole stood, walked to the window. Danny was forking hay into the paddock, slow and easy, not knowing anything was wrong yet. The north pasture fence was still down. The buyer from Tucson was still coming in 2 days. Cole turned around. "You know how to ride?" he asked. She gave him a look that said that was a ridiculous question. "All right," he said. "I've got 2 horses that can cover ground. I've got a rifle and a pistol and enough ammunition to make the morning ugly for anyone who shows up on my property uninvited." He paused. "And I've got a fence line down on the north pasture that gives us a problem because it means we've got no clean perimeter, and I need to know that before burl cutter's men know it." He walked to the door. "Danny," he called across the yard. The ranch hand looked up. "Leave the hay. Get the wire cutters. North fence now." Danny dropped the fork without a word. The second ranch hand, a quiet young man named Pete, appeared from the tack room when Cole pointed, and Pete nodded, and they were both moving. Cole came back inside. Naya was standing by the table. She had found the pitcher of water and was pouring some over her hands, washing her face, pressing cool water carefully against the cloth on her head. "Why?" she said. Not a question, exactly. More like a word that needed to be placed on the table between them so both of them could look at it. Cole took his hat from the hook by the door. "Because he's burl cutter," he said. "And I've been looking for a reason for a long time." That was the truth. Not the whole truth, because the whole truth was something he didn't have the language for yet. Something to do with the way she had eaten those biscuits like a woman who had earned every meal and apologized for none of them. Something to do with the fact that she had not run in the night when she could have. But it was enough truth for right now. He put his hat on. "I'm going to ride the fence line with Danny. Pete will be in the yard. You stay inside. If you hear horses on the road before I'm back, go to the barn, take the gray horse in the 3rd stall, ride south through the dry creek bed, and don't stop until you hit the mission at Los Pinos." She looked at him. "I'll be back in an hour," he said. "And if you're not?" Cole pulled the door open. The morning air came in, cool and clean and smelling like dry grass. "Then ride anyway," he said, "and don't look back." He was across the yard before she could answer. Naya stood in the doorway and watched him go. Danny and Pete were already on horseback, moving toward the ridge at a trot. The yard was quiet. The horses in the paddock stood with their heads up, ears forward, reading the wind. She went back inside. She found the cabinet by the stove. Flour, dried beans, coffee, a tin of peaches. She found a knife on the shelf that was sharp enough to matter. She put it in her belt. Then she sat at the table and waited. She was good at waiting. She had learned it young in the way that some lessons come, and she had learned that waiting was not the same as being still. Waiting was work. Waiting was watching the light on the floor, counting the changes, knowing to the minute when an hour had passed. Over 58 minutes after Cole rode out, she heard horses on the road. More than 4. The sound came from the north road, which meant they had swung around the long way, which meant they knew the property or had someone who did. Naya was already moving. She went out at the back door, crossed the yard at a fast walk, not a run, because running in an open yard gives away distance and direction. She reached the barn, pulled the door, stepped inside. The gray horse was in the 3rd stall, exactly where Cole had said. Tall, clean-legged, calm in a way that said he had been ridden hard before and was not new to urgency. She bridled him with her hands moving fast and sure. No saddle. She didn't need one. Outside, the hoofbeats stopped. A voice called out, "Harlan, you in there? Burl Cutter wants a word." Silence. "Harlan." Pete's voice from the direction of the water trough. "Mr. Harlan's out on the fence line. You want to leave a message?" A pause. Then a different voice, lower, with the flat tone of a man who has already decided what he is going to do and is only using words to fill the space before he does it. "We're looking for an Indian woman, Apache. She came through this area last night." Pete said nothing. The low voice said, "You seen her or not?" Naya leaned her weight against the gray horse's neck, her hand on his nose, keeping him still, listening to the gap between Pete's answer and the sound of boots on dry ground. Pete said, "Can't say I have." The boots moved, 2 sets, coming toward the barn. She was on the horse's back in one motion, no sound, pressed flat along his neck with her heels ready. The barn door opened. The first man was silhouetted in the light. He took 1 step in and stopped when he heard the horse shift. He had just enough time to register that there was someone on the horse before Naya drove her heels in, and the gray surged forward like 4 years of standing in a stall had stored up into a single decision. She went through the barn door, low and fast, the man stumbling back into the dirt, and she was in the yard and already turning south when the shouting started. 4 riders. She counted them in the first second. 2 by the house, 1 still on the road, the one she had knocked down scrambling back to his feet. Pete was standing by the water trough with his hands up and his jaw set and nothing else he could do. She put the gray into a full run. South, Dry Creek bed, the mission at Los Pinos. The first shot came when she was already 30 yards out. High and wide, a warning or a bad shot. Either way, it didn't matter. The second shot was closer, and she felt the gray flinch, but he didn't break stride, and she ran her hand flat across his neck and found no wound, and kept going. Behind her, the riders were remounting. She could hear them by the sound, the scramble, and the bark of orders. The creek bed was a 1/4 mile south. Dry this time of year, sandy floor, banks high enough to hide a rider. If she reached it before they closed the distance, she would lose them in the turns. She reached it. The gray took the bank drop without hesitation, and the sound of the chase muffled behind the earthen walls, and she rode. She did not look back. Cole had said not to, and she had decided, sometime in the last hour, that Cole Harlan's instructions had earned a reasonable amount of trust. Behind her, back at the ranch, she heard shouting, then a single rifle shot, then silence. She kept riding. The creek bed curved east, then southeast, then straightened toward a gap in the hills she could see 1/2 mile ahead. Beyond the gap was the Mission Road. Beyond the Mission Road was Los Pinos. She made the gap in 8 minutes. She did not let herself think about the rifle shot until she was through it. The mission at Los Pinos sat on a low rise above a dry wash. Whitewashed walls gone the color of old bone, a bell tower with no bell. A priest named Father Del Rio, who had been there since before anyone could remember and who asked very few questions and answered even fewer. Naya arrived at mid-morning. The gray horse lathered. Her hand pressed to her side where she had not noticed the graze of the second bullet until the creek bed, when the cold of it had finally arrived. It was not deep. She knew deep. This was a peel, a burn across the left side below the ribs, bleeding steady but not fierce. Father Del Rio opened the gate himself. He looked at her the way he looked at most things that arrived at his gate in rough condition, which was with complete calm and immediate practical attention. "Inside," he said. She got off the horse. Her knees wanted to do something embarrassing, but she did not let them. Inside the mission walls there was a courtyard with a stone well and two old women who moved without speaking and seemed to already know what was needed. One took the horse. One took Naya by the arm and led her to a room with a narrow bed and a window and a candle. Naya sat on the bed. Let the woman clean the wound. Her mind was back on the ranch at the sound of that rifle shot, and she was doing the work of not doing anything with it yet. 3 hours later, Cole Harlan rode through the mission gate. He had a cut above his left eye, one less horse than he had left with, and the look of a man who had settled something that had needed settling for a long time. He found her in the courtyard, sitting on the edge of the stone well, her side wrapped, the gray horse watered and calm in the shade. He stopped 10 feet away. She looked at him. "The cut," she said. "Butt of a rifle," he said. "Other guy's worse off." She nodded. He sat down on the opposite edge of the well. "Burl Cutter wasn't with them," he said. "Those were hired men, riders. Cutter himself is still out." "I know," she said. "He'll come himself next time." "I know that too." Cole took his hat off, turned it in his hands. He had the manner of a man working towards something he was not entirely sure how to say. "Pete's all right," he said first. "Danny too. The house is standing." She let out a breath she had not named. "There's a marshal in Flagstaff," Cole said. "Not Cutter's man. I've known him a long time. If I ride there tonight and you come with me, we bring what you know about your brother, what I know about Cutter's operations, and we put it in front of a man who actually has the weight to do something with it." Naya looked across the courtyard. One of the old women was hanging cloth on a line in the shade. Like somewhere behind the mission wall, a bird was doing something complicated and cheerful. "He took my brother with a piece of paper," she said. "What makes you think paper from a marshal does anything different?" It was a fair question. It was the question. Cole knew it. "Because I've got 4 witnesses to this morning," he said. "And because Cutter shot across my property at a woman who was on my land under my protection. And that is a different kind of paper than what he used on your brother." He paused. "It's not clean. It's not fast. But it's the kind of fight he can't pay a lawyer to make disappear." She was quiet for a long time. The cloth on the line lifted in a small wind. "My brother," she said. "We get him first," Cole said immediately. "Tonight, before we go to Flagstaff. Your uncle's family, you said, on east of the ridge." She looked at him. The question again, the same one from that morning in the house. Why? He met it the same way, not with a speech, not with a reason dressed up as a principle. "Because it's the right order of things," he said. She stood up from the well. Her side pulled. She did not show it. "Then we leave before dark," she said. Cole put his hat back on. "Yes, ma'am," he said. Father Del Rio watched them ride out from the mission gate as the sun went red over the western hills. The tall man on the black horse and the Apache woman on the gray, side by side, moving at a pace that meant business. He made a small private prayer for the both of them. It seemed like the least a person could do. They rode east as the sky went dark, crossing the ridge trail where the pines thinned and the rock took over. The horses picking their way, with the kind of trust that only comes from being ridden by people who know when to let a horse think. Cole had the rifle across his saddle. Naya rode with her eyes on the land ahead, reading it, her whole body tuned to what was out there the way a tuning fork is tuned to a single note. They didn't speak much. There wasn't much that needed saying. 2 hours past the ridge, she pointed. A light, small and low, from a canyon fold in the hillside below a stand of juniper. Her uncle's fire. They came in slow. She clicked her tongue twice in a particular way. An answer came back from the dark, a low 2-note whistle. And then a man appeared from behind a boulder with a rifle that came down when he saw her face. Her uncle was a broad, quiet man named Tom, who had her same eyes and her same way of taking up exactly as much space as needed. He looked at Cole once, looked at Naya, looked at the bandage at her side, and said something in Apache that Cole didn't catch but understood. Her brother was in the lean-to at the back of the camp. Naya went to him. Cole stayed by the horses, gave them water from the canteen, listened to the reunion that he had no business being in the middle of. Her brother's voice was young, shaking at first, then steadying. Hers was low and even and constant, the voice of someone who has come back for what they promised to come back for. Tom stood beside Cole, and they looked at the stars for a while. "You the man who kept her safe," Tom said. "She kept herself safe," Cole said. I just gave her a horse." Tom looked at him sideways. There was something in the look that was not unfriendly, but was measuring, the way a good man measures another man when something real is at stake. "She told me what you were riding toward," Tom said. "Cutter?" "Yes. He has people everywhere in that territory." "I know," Cole said. "That's why we're doing it on paper first and trouble second." Tom was quiet. Then, "And if the paper doesn't hold?" Cole looked at the fire. "Then we do trouble first," he said, "and paper doesn't come into it." Tom made a low sound that might have been approval. Naya came back out with her brother, a young man named Eli, maybe 17. Thin in the way of someone who had not been fed properly for weeks, but standing straight and watching Cole with careful eyes. Cole put out his hand. Eli looked at it, looked at Naya. She nodded, one small movement. Eli shook Cole's hand. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet," Cole said. "We've still got to get to Flagstaff." They broke camp before midnight. Tom and 2 other men would take Eli south along a route that Cutter's riders didn't know. Naya and Cole would ride to Flagstaff, to the marshal, to the paper and the truth and whatever came after. The parting was short. Naya pressed her forehead to her brother's and held him there for 4 seconds. And then she let go. That was all. They rode north, halfway to Flagstaff. In the flat, dark country before the pine belt, Naya said, "What happens to your ranch while all this is settled?" Cole thought about it. "Danny and Pete are good men," he said. "Fence'll get fixed. Cattle'll get fed. The buyer from Tucson is going to be annoyed." She was quiet. "It'll be there when I get back," he said. Another silence. Then she said, "And after? After Flagstaff? After the marshal and the paper? What do you do?" Cole looked at the trail ahead. It was the first time she had asked him anything about himself, about what came after, which was a different kind of question than anything that had come before. It was the kind of question that carried weight in its asking. That meant something about the person willing to ask it. "Go home," he said. "Fix the north fence properly. Probably have a long conversation with a very unhappy cattle buyer." He paused. "And figure out what comes next." She said nothing, but she did not look away. They rode into Flagstaff at first light, the kind of low yellow morning that makes everything look like it's been drawn in pencil, clean and not yet complicated. The marshal's name was Evan Cross. He was a narrow, careful man with 20 years on the job and the eyes of someone who has been lied to professionally for 2 decades and developed a strong preference for the truth. Cole set everything on the table. Naya sat beside him and did not let Cole speak for her, which he had not tried to do. Cross listened for 40 minutes without interrupting. Then he picked up a pen. Burl Cutter was arrested 9 days later at his own ranch by a federal marshal with 2 deputies and a warrant that his Tucson lawyer could not make disappear. Because the warrant had come from a judge 3 levels above the man Cutter had bought, which was the level that money sometimes cannot reach. It took 6 months in court. Cole testified. Naya testified. Evan Cross testified. 3 of Cutter's own riders, offered the chance to choose between loyalty and a prison sentence, chose with reasonable speed. Burl Cutter went to prison on a federal conviction for unlawful detainment, assault, and land fraud that had been running quietly under 4 different county names for 11 years. The day the conviction came through, Cole was mending the last section of the north fence, the part that had been down since the night Naya had walked into his barn. He heard a horse on the road. He stood up, pushed his hat back. She came up the road on a brown mare, easy and upright, and stopped on the other side of the fence. They looked at each other across the wire. "Fence is almost done," he said. "I can see that," she said. He drove the last staple, set the hammer down, stood up. "Your brother," he said. "Good," she said. "Better. Back with the family." She paused. "He is going to school," he decided. His own idea. "Good idea," Cole said. Silence. Not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that has a question somewhere inside it that is taking its time getting out. "I don't have anywhere to be," she said. Cole looked at the fence. "I've got a north pasture that runs better with 2 people working it," he said. She looked at the ranch, the yard, the barn, the house with its back door still slightly crooked on its hinges from a hard winter 3 years ago that Cole had never quite gotten around to fixing. "The door," she said. "What about it?" "It needs fixing." "Been meaning to get to it," he said. She dismounted, tied the mare to the fence post, stepped over the wire where the last section was still down, into the pasture, into his land, easy as anything. "I'll start there," she said. She walked toward the house. Cole watched her go. Then he picked up the hammer. There was still fence to mend, and the buyer from Tucson had rescheduled twice already and was not a patient man. And the north pasture needed work before the first frost, and the day was burning and clear and full of the particular quality that good days have when they follow bad ones. He drove the last staple. He did not look back. He did not need to.